I am going to be animating a Jujutsu Kaisen scene on the worst animation app, and I am going to give myself 72 hours to complete this, which means 3 days total. But the plot twist is, I am a non-animator. I have not animated before. So the scene that I'm going to be animating is this scene right here. It's Sukuna versus Special Grade, and the scene itself is 40 seconds long, which is not good. Now, how am I going to go about this? I am going to be separating this scene into 5 parts, with our first scene being Sukuna having his hands in his face saying domain expansion. Then our second scene is going to be a singular water droplet, and then the domain expansion transition. Then our third scene is going to be Sukuna sitting down in his chair with the camera angle panning more farther away, showing his domain expansion. This scene right here is probably going to be the most hardest part to draw. Then our fourth scene is going to be Special Grade being scared because he is in the domain expansion. Then we see him get chopped up into 5 parts, with his limbs and arms and hands flying. Then we see Sukuna walking towards his body, talking to him, then grabbing his cursed finger from his chest. Now for our last and final scene, our fifth part is going to be Sukuna holding Special Grade's cursed finger, then walking by with Special Grade's body going up into purple flames. And that whole clip right there is going to be 40 seconds long. After saying that, let's just say I'm excited but nervous. And in order to start, we have to wake up. It's time, bro. It is time. Let's get right into it. Ugh. I am currently in my kitchen, and then now I am currently in my bathroom. So the way that I'm going to structure these 3 days is that I'm going to work 12 hours each and every single day, which means that if I start at 3 p.m., I'm going to end at 3 a.m. And overall, I'm pretty excited, but at the same time, I'm pretty anxious because I never know what the animation can end up at. But sadly, before that, I have to go to school. So I got back like 4 hours ago. It is currently now 6 o'clock. Which means if I start now, that means I have to end at 6 a.m. Now again, the main goal is to fully animate on flipaclip and make everything good to our best abilities. 72-hour challenge starts now. So the first hour, day one, was basically just me doing the background. So I first added the layout. Then after doing the layout, I added the colors, which were navy blue and purples. And after adding the colors, I added the blurry textures and soft textures. But that wasn't the look that I was looking for. So I added some grunge textures, and this was the look that I was looking for. So after adding that, I finally got the look that I was looking for because I was really trying my hardest to really replicate the same exact background as JJK. And this was the end result. In my personal opinion, the background does not look that far-fetched from the actual background from JJK, but that's my opinion. Now, moving on to the water part. Now, this part right here is probably the most hardest part to draw because, again, drawing water is not easy, and drawing water on flipaclip is even harder. But I'm still trying my best. As you can see, I'm doing different type of textures, different type of watercolors, but it's just not working. So I kept resetting, I kept doing it again until I got this result. It looks bad, but I moved on to the rock, and the rock even worse. The rock looks even worse. I didn't even try. And as you can see, I'm adding the blue color, but that's all I added. And then I added this kind of dark blur and this kind of light blur. To be honest, I have no idea what I'm doing at this point. It looks awful, it looks bad, but this is the end result. And just got done with the first background of part 1, and it looks pretty promising. The background itself took about 1 hour. Hopefully, by the end of this 12 hour, I could be on my 3rd part, if not the background. And now we're adding Special Grade. So this guy right here was pretty hard to draw because, again, I had to learn human anatomy. But besides that, his head was pretty easy to draw. His shoulders were pretty easy to draw. And I don't know if you see it. Sorry for the voice crack. And I don't know if you see it, but you can see me switching between tabs, just making sure that I have Special Grade's body aligned because his structure is definitely hard to draw because, again, he is in a weird stance that I cannot draw perfectly. So I had to switch between tabs. But still, somehow I spent 3 hours on doing Special Grade's left side. It was actually so draining. And this is the end result of adding Special Grade. And now we're drawing the most iconic character in anime, Sukuna. And as you can see, I already drew his face, now we're moving on to his hair. But before that, a little interruption. Yeah, how I'm animating with my fingers. And what is Sukuna without his cursed energy tattoos? So now all we're doing is making sure that Sukuna looks like Sukuna. After adding the colors, now we're just animating the blink that Sukuna does, and then drawing his hands as well, and just making everything perfect for the finale. The hardest part for this scene was the hands, so all I did was just retrace it. So update, it is 2 a.m. which means I have 4 hours left of this shift. So far it's going good. And if I had to say the most difficult part about this animation, it's probably the hands. The hands is by far the hardest part of the animation, but we're getting through it. But besides that, we're ready. So this part right here is actually pretty easy because all I did was just copy the background that I made in the first scene and then just made little ripples. At first I did this blue color, but I didn't like it, so I changed the angle, then I did the animation for the ripples. After figuring out the animation style, I moved on to what color I wanted the textures to be, and it was white. Overall, that part looks decent. Up next, we have this kind of underworld water bubbly effect. All I did was just use the red blurry texture, then drawing white circles. This was by far the most easiest part because all we did was just draw these cursed fingers and then animate them going bigger and bigger.
領域展開領域展開
It is now the second day of the animation, and right now it is 3 p.m. which means if I start now, that means I have to end at 3 a.m. The first part took like 7 hours, and then the second part took like 1 hour and a half. So on day 2, our main goal is to finish part 3 and part 4 because we're saving part 5 for the last day. At first, I will say, I thought that this was going to be hard to draw, but then I just realized it just took some time because it wasn't hard. It took me like 45 minutes. After finishing the line work, I moved on to adding the color. After adding the color, I had to make the water. So for the water, all I did was just copy the same background from part 1 and then put it on the ground. Then put on a second layer where I could add clear blue color. And then for the top part, all I did was just do the same exact thing. Paint the background black, then add my traditional red blurry color. And in the original animation, I noticed that there's something in the water and it was a pipeline, so I added that as well. By drawing 2 lines and adding half circles to have the illusion that we're looking at a cylinder. And that's the end of that background. Now it's time to add Sukino. And I did the most laziest thing. All I did was just copy and paste Sukino from the last previous scenes. And then just change the color of his clothes from red and blue to black and white. And that's about it. Then use the same hands, copy and paste that. Now it's time for the animation. So in the actual scene of JJK, the camera is zooming in. Yeah, first of all, I don't have the time for that. And I am on a budget. I am not MAPPA. So with that being said, I'm gonna just add 2 frames. One close up and then one from far away. So I did that and then it looks pretty trash. That's the end of part 3. Now moving on to part 4. Now part 4 is by far my cleanest part I have done yet because the animation looks kind of similar to the actual animation in JJK. I am not gonna lie, bro. I just did like 3 hours of not animating. 3 hours of not animating because I was eating and watching YouTube. It is definitely time. Part 3 is done, but my main goal for today was to do part 3 and part 4. So that means right now we're gonna go on part 4 and complete that. Right now it is 12 a.m. and then this has to be done before 5 a.m. At first, you know, we always start with the background. So we did the background layout, and the background layout was pretty cool. So after finishing that, we moved on to the colors. The colors we added were mostly blue and green. Then again, that grunge texture came in clutch. It just makes everything look so perfect, and it makes it look like the actual scene from JJK. So after doing the background, pretty simple, pretty clean, we moved on to the character, which is special grade. So he took about like 10 minutes to do. Figured out his face structure, then adding his traps and shoulders. And after drawing that, we added the color, which is a bit grayish. We added the key points, like those little things on top of his head, his eyes, and then we also added shadows. And this shadow right here actually made everything look a lot better. And we low-key added a secret texture to his skin, which made him look a lot much better. So after doing that, we had to move on to the actual animation of him getting sliced into 5 parts. In order to make this 5 slice animation work, we had to do 5 layers, which we just sliced up 5 parts of Special Grade's body and then put each of his sliced part into 1 layer. So at the end, we could animate each and every single piece of his slice. We had 2 keyframes, one where he is obviously in whole, then one where he is fully teared apart. Then to make the animation look a bit cleaner, we added a middle key point. After animating that, it looks pretty clean. We added some lines to make the cut look a lot more cleaner, and then add some blood splashes, which was purple blood splashes. And then the animation at the end looked perfectly resemblance to the actual animation in JJK. Just got done with the part where the guy's head is split into 5 parts. And it is 4:30 a.m. which means that I have to get some rest and that day 2 is officially over, which means that I have 1 more day left of animation, which is not good because I still have a lot of parts to do. But I do believe that we could do this. I do believe that we could finish this by day 3. Boom! You remember how I said I have so much to do? Yes, I'm doing everything today. So this scene right here is the second section of part 4. So I'm doing the background, which is just a roof, and then basically just a little shed. So after I did the colors, I did the animation, which is pieces of Special Grade's arm going up on the screen. But now we're moving on to our last scene of part 4, which is this scene right here, which is the last best looking scene. Because this scene right here took me about 6 hours to do, which means I have 3 hours left. So everything that's above this one is gonna be pretty So for this scene, we did the usual, just replicate the background that we see. And after that, we added the colors with using our old reliable, the grunge texture. And the scene looks almost identical, but obviously it's flipaclip, so we're not gonna have the best background. Now, the reason why this scene took 6 hours is because of Sukuno. I could not figure out his anatomy. I tried like 4 different characters and it all looked bad until I got this character, which still looks bad. But we ended up going with it because I have 2 hours left. So we animated him going closer to the body, then him yapping, and then after that, him reaching for the cursed finger in Special Grade's chest. And then now we're working on part 5. So in the beginning of part 5 starts off with Sukuno grabbing Special Grade's cursed finger from his chest. The background was pretty easy, but it looks bad. And then me animating the finger going into the chest was, I mean, see for yourself. Yeah, it looks bad. But we have no time because we have an hour left. So we moved on to our second to last scene, which is Sukuno talking with holding the cursed finger. Now at this point, I have 45 minutes left. So I couldn't do nothing. So all I did was just use the same exact picture from the animation, then just animate his mouth moving. That's all I did. Now with a whopping 15 minutes left, we have to do our last scene, which is Sukuno walking away with Special Grade's body going up into flame. We replicated the background from the animation and it doesn't look too bad. Now it's time for the animation. And then here's where everything took a downfall. When I was moving on to the animation, I realized that I have 5 minutes left. I did this kind of odd ones out figure, and then added 2 keyframes with him being in the front and then him being in the back. And then for the flame part, all we did was just copy and paste the flames from the animation of JJK. Like and subscribe, and this is the final results.
領域展開福間水す3枚に下ろしたつもりだったんだがやはり弱いなお前くそ